Okay. Welcome back. My name is Joe Morgan. I'm the president of Trout Unlimited. This is the first in-person meeting we're having in 2.5 years. Can you guys hear me or?
Yeah, there's just talk. There's no mic. I haven't got a mic.
Oh, I thought he said the mic was hot.
That mic is online.
Okay.
Do you want to use that?
Yeah, better. I thought it was all tied in. I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Just flip that switch and you should be good.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So yeah, welcome back, everybody. Like I said, this is our first meeting in 2.5 years, and it's good to see some faces I haven't seen in a while. But just out of curiosity, how many members are fellows here and gals that are TU members? Okay, good. Like I said, the meetings are open to the public. You're welcome to come to all of our meetings and welcome to join. So just before I turn it over to Jim, I would like to make a few quick announcements. This meeting is being live streamed and it's going to be recorded. I think we put that disclaimer out just so everyone knows. Our goal is to put this on a YouTube channel or in some way for you folks to go back and look at it and review it if you want, and for folks that can't come to the meetings in person. The people at home, if you can provide us some feedback and just let us know how things have worked out. This is the first time we're doing this. So I'm sure there's going to be some growing pains, hopefully not too many. Next month, our meeting is going to be a belated 50th anniversary party. Right before COVID hit, we were celebrating our 50th anniversary and then they shut us down. So we're welcoming everyone back for the party. We're going to have some pizza. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to have some stories. We're going to have some memorabilia. If anybody has any experiences from the past with TU and would like to share them, just drop us an email or just bring it to the meeting and we'll talk about it. So it should be a pretty good evening. One thing we'll do as we get close, there'll be more details in the newsletter, but we're going to ask people to RSVP or just let us know who's coming, so we have an idea with the pizza and the refreshments. October 15th and 16th are Orvis days in the store here, and we're going to have a couple of speakers. I believe Saturday afternoon we're going to have a table here, I guess preaching the gospel on Trout Unlimited, and you're welcome to come that day. For the folks that live in the South Towns, we have a program called Cash for Cans at the Hamburg can and bottle return. And all proceeds go to the chapter. So you take your cans in, you tell them you want to give it to Trout Unlimited, they'll take them from you. You don't have to do anything, and they'll deposit the money in our account. I don't expect people from the North Towns or far southern tier to do it, but if you're in the area, that would help us. Alberto Ray asked me to mention his program called Children in the Stream. His 4-H program, it's in its 24th year, and it's geared towards young adults. They meet every Tuesday at Fredonia State, and it's a great program. It's free to the children. They provide all the materials. They teach them about fly fishing, conservation. They even do some on-stream trips throughout the year. They have a really nice holiday party. And he asked to pass that along. So if any of you have any young children or know people that would be interested in it, you can go. We have the information in our newsletter, and if you Google Alberto Ray fly fishing, he'll have a link to his site for that program. This is kind of a late announcement, and we're looking for volunteers. Next Tuesday, October 4th, we're going to finish up some work on the Crow Creek project. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. We did a project over the summer in conjunction with the Wyoming County Soil and Water Division and the Buffalo Niagara River or Waterkeeper, I should say. They're we placed a 130-foot culvert. We put in some structure to allow brook trout passage. And they had some funding left over and they didn't want to leave it on the table. Long story short, we're going to put some structure upstream of the culvert, in-stream structure. We're going to meet on October 4th at 10:30, and we're going to do probably 65 log placements in the stream. I have a sign-up sheet here. I know it's a work day. I know some of you guys work like me, but if anyone can get out there and give us some help, we'd really appreciate it. I think I have one more thing here. It's going to be rain or shine. Just bring some waders, some boots, because it's going to be in-stream work. Unless it's a monsoon like it's been the last few days, we're going to do it. If you put your contact information on there, I will get in touch with you. For some reason, we had to cancel. As always, we appreciate your help. And also, Alberto wanted me to mention that on October 30th at 3 p.m., if you go to his site, he'll tell you more details. He does an annual stocking of brook trout in Canada Way Creek. He's looking for some volunteers just to help with the kids. And he really says it's a great time. I think they have a lunch and they're always looking for help. And I'll just close by saying, you know, we're always looking for volunteers and ideas. If you guys want to do something else, you have some ideas, suggestions, feel free to reach out to me or our board members. And that's about it. Next month's meeting, like I said, will be the party. In November, we have a group called Trout Power. It's going to be a Zoom meeting from a gentleman from Vermont, and it's a group that goes out and does brook trout stream studies and analysis throughout the Adirondacks for native brook trout populations. So that's what we're going to kind of do this year, in person, all the time if we could, with some guest speakers that are out, not going to come here, they're out of the area, they'll be able to present through Zoom. And other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He's got to make a little announcement before Jim takes over. And you guys all know Jim, I take it. He's the DEC biologist, Mr. Steelhead. So there you go.
All right, I'm gonna just embarrass Mr. Steelhead here for just a second. And I'm only telling you this because I know Jim wouldn't do it because he's a modest guy. But the work that Jim's been doing over the last 7 years, I guess, got recognized by the American Fisheries Society this year in 2022. He won the outstanding project in 2022 in the area of sport fishery development and management. So it's just a testament to the level of science and the level of the caliber of work that Jim's doing on a daily basis to try to manage this fishery. So maybe a round of applause for Jim. Thank you.
Just ignore me.
I'm gonna try getting away without the microphone here. Are you good in the back right now? If you're not, yell, because I'll talk louder, but I talk loud as it is. And Bill said he was good with the microphone, so I'm gonna be moving around a whole lot here, or a little bit anyway. So if I can roll without the microphone, that's a lot better for me. Great seeing everybody actually in person. I think this is the first in-person meeting that I've done since 2019, I believe. And usually do a lot of meetings and go to a lot of meetings. So it's nice to get the ball rolling again. It's nice to get it rolling again with you guys. Lots of friendly, familiar faces here. And thanks to Jason here. I don't know if everybody knows, Jason's our unit leader down at the Lake Erie, and I dragged him up here for the meeting tonight here. So I don't think, did you see Pascal here?
No, I think we're the only two.
Yeah, there were some other people that were going to show up, but it doesn't look like they quite made it up. So, so I'm going to piece together a couple things. Actually, that study, we're going to talk about that here tonight a little bit. We're going to talk about what we talked about in the Zoom meetings for a couple of years about some experimental studies that we've been working with the Salmon River Hatchery on our steelhead, And then we're gonna sort of go into our results of our creel study that we did last year and bring you up to speed on fishery performance as far as that goes. But I got a couple slides there, and everything's kind of tied together with that too. So I might be asking people if somebody gets lost here. I'm going to be throwing a little data and stuff at you here. Try not to make it too complicated. But if you're lost somewhere along the way, please raise your hand because I don't want anybody to get lost. All right. We good, Bill? Okay. So let's just start real quick and talk about our steelhead stocking here. Of course, used to be involved salmon species, brown trout on and off here, but as of late, you can see in the last few years really keyed on just steelhead in the blue bars, and then our domestic rainbows in the red bars. We went back to domestics a few years ago to try to help that early season fishery. A lot of those are fall stock coming out of Bath. We'll be going in the end of October. And we get a few of those also in the springtime that go into 18 Mile Creek with that too. But you'll notice a drop in the stocking, and that's really what I want everybody to pay attention to in the last few years. The last 3 years, especially 2020, 2021, 2022, our steelhead numbers were cut from about 250 down to half of that. 127.5 is our target now. I'm going to go into the reason why we did that. Okay, so we had a little over 147,000 went in in 2022, and then 50,000 domestic rainbows. So roughly 200,000 fish went in 2022. So we're going to piece that together, okay, that stocking info there with our old study that we did on Chautauqua Creek, and that's the one that Jason just mentioned out. And actually, me and Jason have the paper out on this that we got published in North American Journal. And I talked a lot of years about that, but if you're not familiar with that, we did a multi-year study on Chautauqua Creek. We stocked fish up high in the drainage, up lower in the drainage, 2 different sizes of fish, a smaller batch of fish, a larger batch of fish in each of those locations, and they're all uniquely tagged. So we followed those fish not only in the stream for 3 months, and from summer all the way through the spring and summer all the way to the beginning of fall. But then we also looked at them for 3 years afterwards on what we were getting for returns of those fish out of there. So from that study, this isn't all the research conclusions out of that, but what we found was that the larger fish tended to leave the stream, while the smaller stocked fish actually stayed in the stream and moved upstream. It's not really what we want. We want stocked fish in a creek. We want them to leave. We want them to come back to that creek. That's our stocking program. Fish greater than 6 inches had largely emigrated by the end of May. Ones that were less than 6 inches stayed in the creek. If you stay in the creek all summer long, what happens to those fish? Yeah, they die. They're not making it out of any of our creeks. Maybe the cat, maybe some of those can hang on there, but they're not hanging in 18 Mile or Canada Way Creek or even Chautauqua Creek. They dry up and get warm. So it makes sense that the fish that stayed in the creek lost condition. Well, of course, they have a lot to eat, right? So, and the water got really warm. That made sense. And then on the adult returns, our larger fish stocked upstream returned over 4 times higher than our smaller stream stocked at that same location. Okay, and then those were 6 times higher than the fish that were stocked down low. So fish stock, larger fish stocked high. Okay, we're the way to go. So what's our common theme here in everything? Larger fish are better fish, right? Larger fish is where we're getting the most benefits. Larger fish leave, larger fish were detected, greater than 150. Those are the ones that left and came back. Okay, so out of that, just that general theme of stocking larger is where we moved into some experiments with salmon river hatchery. So you guys know, I've talked about that since forever, since I've been here. At Salmon River Hatchery, those guys bust their butts over there. They have poor water, no water sometimes, and they have temperatures that aren't fit really for raising trout. So they do a great job just trying to get fish out. And so what we asked them was we go, okay, can you guys raise a bigger fish? Can you raise a bigger fish? And I said, is there stuff that you can do? And Tom over at the hatchery said, we can try. I said, well, they said, well, we can start grading. We can, we're gonna rear at some reduced densities. We can adjust our feeding regimes. We got some new feed coming in as well too, that has proven to be better. Recirculate some water back again. They did a bunch of different things there, but in order for them to do that, we went from our 255 down to 127.5. So that's why I mentioned that earlier. Those last 3 years have been our experimental study period, and that's what I'm going to talk about here in the next couple slides. So the last few years, 127.5. So what we really want to get at here is did you guys grow a better product, and what is coming out of that product as far as what we think is going to be coming back for our adult fishery, right? I mean, that's the whole gain, is to try to make our adult fishery better. Okay, so let's start looking at some of the results of these, okay? So 13 and 14 were pre-study. Okay, so on the next couple slides there, you're going to see 13, 14, those were pre-study. Then you're going to see 2020, 2021, 2022. Those are all the study period. Okay, so average length pre-study was about 5 inches long. Okay, post-study, after that, or in the study period, first year was 6 inches, and then after that, 5.6 inches. So they got the fish about an inch larger. Okay, so an inch larger, half of an inch larger. So they were able to get on average a larger fish. Okay, just on average what they got coming out. Big thing though is let's look at the weight. Okay, so let's look at the fish on the screen here before we even talk about weight. So the fish on the left are ones that range anywhere from 3, 4, and 5 inches. Okay, our fish on our right here is about 6 inches long. So what do you see out of those two fish? If I had to tell you, which one of those fish do you think would survive better? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? The one on the right is pretty fat compared to any of the ones on the left. And even the 5-incher, there's a huge difference between a 5-inch fish and a 6-inch fish in just in its average weight. And that showed up in the results. If you look at the average weight on the screen right here, these fish were twice as large as those fish before. Okay, so that they may have only been an inch larger, but they weighed twice as much as they did. They were a much better product coming out as far as having fat reserves and being able to survive. Okay, so one more thing to pay attention to on this is our maximum range here. Okay, so this is the fish that we did in the sample here. This is the largest fish that came out of there. Pre-study was 6.6 and 7.2 inches. Post-study ranged from 6.8 to 7.1. No difference. Okay, so even though they did all of these things, that maximum size of the fish that they are able to produce remained the same. So that indicated to us when we looked at that there's just a ceiling that Salmon River is capable of raising, and this is it. They're not raising 8-inch steelhead here in this time frame. Their conditions that they have are just not capable of that. So they're doing about the best that they can do, and the fish can only get so big given the water quality and quantity of water that they have there. Okay. So I'm going to get this is the most complicated slide you're going to see all night here. And I don't have a pointer, I don't think. This isn't a pointer, is it, Bill?
It is.
It is a pointer. Okay. Maybe. Pointer would be great.
There you go.
On that's the bottom one? Perfect. Okay. So, all right, we're gonna get we're gonna have a lot going on here. So let's tackle the graph here, okay, first. So this first graph is 2013 and 14, so the pre-study. You don't need to worry about really like the blue and the red here, because as you see there, they're all about the same. A couple things though, the red here, the red bars right there. So the red on the graphs coming up, any of the graphs are our fish that are 6 inches and larger. Okay, so you look at that, that's 6 inches. This line down the middle here, that's the 5-inch line. Okay, so you got a 5-inch line right here, and you got fish in red that are 6. So that's what we're going to be kind of talking about in these. So the first thing I think when you look at this, there's not really a peak at all in the graph, right? This is like I call a very wide length distribution. Okay, this is the length of fish that were measured out of there, and they're very widely spread out. There is some large fish, but there's a bunch of small fish in here too. Okay, so a wide distribution of fish. Okay, and over half of these fish in these years were less than 5 inches long. Okay, over half of them were less than 5 inches. So let's look at the results now of 2020, 2021, and 2022. Okay, so instantly, okay, when you see this, it's pretty evident that the red bars are more prominent in these graphs. There's a lot more fish that are hitting that 6-inch mark than there was earlier, right? Let's look at the distributions of these. Okay, 2020 was awesome. Very, I call it compact. All right, a lot of the fish at 6 or just below 6 right here. 2021 and 22, you get a little bit of straying out, but nothing like here. Okay, a lot of this is due to the grading. They graded out those small fish. A lot of the small fish were all kind of taken away there, and I think they fed them to the brown trout actually over at the hatchery right there. But anyway, no longer in the mix for the most part there. So if you look at that line there, most of the fish are to the right of the line in the size that we want them to be in that. So a compact distribution. If we look at 2020, only 4% of the fish were less than 5 inches, a little bit more in 2022, but nowhere near the 50% that were there. The other thing that's worth pointing out is this little bar right here. So this is the fish that are in that 1/2 inch, just short of 6 inch. So they're in about 5.5 to just shy of 6 inches. And you notice that there's a lot more of them, actually twice as much as there was previously. Okay, so what you get with that is you go, okay, well, we got fish here that are hitting that 6-inch mark, but we have a lot more fish that are almost 6 inches. So if they grow a little bit in the creek, they have that potential to be able to smolt and leave the creek and hopefully come back as adults. So a lot more quality fish right through here. Okay, I covered a lot on that screen. Did I lose anybody, Joe?
I got one question. The 1/2-inch difference in 2021 and 2022 on the average, what do you attribute that to? Water temperature at the hatchery?
That's a good question. I just asked the hatchery guys and I haven't gotten an answer back again. So what Joe asked was like, why is there not as many fish really in the red in 2020 and 2021 and 22, which is exactly correct in that too. We had I forgot on that. Oh, I'm going to be talking about that coming up here in a minute with that too. But there's a lot more fish that are just short that didn't quite hit the red in 2020. You get variable. I mean, the hatchery guys, it's whether it has to do with grading, whether it has to do with growth, whether it has to do with something that happened in the water there. There's probably something that happened there. There's a lot going on at the hatchery. Let's just put it like that. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question, Jim.
Yep.
It looks like, with your larger size, that the hatchery was culling the smaller one, just getting them out, and that would, make the average size larger. Well, is there another way that instead of culling them out, because you're wasting a lot of resources, just going into a certain size and then throwing them out or feeding them you know, to other fish.
But the gradings happen pretty early in the process.
Okay,
Here, it's not like at the end they're grading them. They're grading them pretty early in the process. When they're moving them indoors in the fall is when they're grading them out. So they're not like that far
okay, so right
along.
when they're hatched, then they almost.
Yeah, it's early in the game that you get they're taking the runs out.
Well, you think genetics may have something to do with it?
I don't know. You know, it's hard to say. I mean, our steelhead are all coming out of Lake Ontario. And, you know, supposedly our pure strain ones are clipped, and those are the ones that they spawn and pass on. So, you know, how there's some genetics mixed in with that, it's really hard to say. How anything's degrading or changing, you know, with that. I guess I can't really comment on that. I can comment that they do make the effort to get us our pure strain Washington steelhead. You know, and that's what we get. Chuck?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we run, you know, trout in the classroom programs. And we get 100 eggs from the hatchery for a tank at a school. And when I go in there in the spring, when they're ready to put them out, and then, you know, it's like, the eggs are all here, and he takes a little tool and scoops up 100 eggs, and we toss them in the thermos. I mean, they're all that genetics is all mixed together. I mean, they should be somewhat similar. And in May, they'll be anywhere from this long to almost 4 inches. And I'll tell you, the brown trout, the ones that are this long, you don't see them for very long. If there's a 4-inch fish in there, you see its tail sticking out of the mouth. So I mean, they're just a bunch of eggs that came out together. There's that kind of variety.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of natural variability and growth as it is in general. And you get some fish that are more aggressive than other fish and just feed better. Okay, so let's have the tire hit the road here a little bit. So we're going to talk something that we call effective stocking number. Okay, so what that earlier research, again, piecing back and going back then, that 150 millimeter, that 6-inch fish. Okay, and not only our research, there's a lot of other research out there that's shown that 6-inch fish is really what you need to stock. Those are the fish that leave the creek, have a better chance of coming back as adults. Okay, so
How do you determine they leave the creek? Are they transmitting? Are they radio transmitting? They tag them and touch them?
they're not from our study. There, when we were sampling up the creek, we were just noticing that the fish, when fish hit that 6, we weren't getting fish after the end of May that were 6 inches in size. Everything was smaller than that. There's been lots of other studies that have done it different ways by stocking fish that are all larger than that and stocking fish that are smaller and being able to look at the comparisons. But that, if you look, there's a lot of stuff in the literature, and that it always ends up coming back to that 6-inch mark. Seems to be the fish that are the ones that are able to hit that smolting size and transform and leave the stream. Yeah. Okay, so that 6 inches, I call that's the magical mark. That's really the size that we're looking for our fish to hit. So what we're looking at here with our effective stocking number is the percentage of fish in those length distributions that we saw that hit that 6-inch mark. Okay, we multiply that by the number of fish that we stocked, and you come out with what we call the effective stocking number. Okay, that's the number that we think are high quality fish coming out. Okay, so 2013-14, you can see that it varied 11 one year, 21% the other year. And that ended up about 28 to 54,000 fish coming out. 2021, we had 55% of our fish hit that 6-inch mark. Even out of half of the number stocked, the effective stocking number was still 3 times as much as 2013 and 1.5 times greater than 2014 in that. But you will notice that percentage dropped in 2021 and again in 2022, And that essentially lowered what our effective stocking numbers were in those years back into the ranges that were in 2013 and 14. So this right here, that downward trend is kind of concerning to us of going, okay, why were we not able to stay at that, 50% mark? What made it go back to 40% and then back to 30%? And we don't have the answers to those again yet. Obviously, that we would like to keep it up at that half the fish hitting that mark if we can. But that's only something that the guys at the hatchery will be able to tell us. So the bottom line of this is if you look at the numbers over here, we're not doing any worse than we were when we were stocking twice as many fish. All right, we think that we're holding our own in that. However, it would be nice to be able to crank out more of those fish and be able to be maybe more consistently where we were in 2020 compared to maybe where we were in 2022. So we still have a little bit of digging to do on that. Okay, so let's and then that's what I just talked about right there. Should have went one more slide, obviously. Okay, so let's just kind of look at our conclusions here. So the experimental rearing techniques were successful. They did increase the average size, especially the average weight. Fish were a lot heavier, and they were more consistent in the size than they were before. We eliminated a bunch of the small fish that were out there. We produced comparable effective stocking numbers. So, we're not doing any worse than we were before, for sure. And just remember, there was a much larger pool of fish that were just shy of that 6-inch mark, which could actually be contributing to the fishery more than they were before. We did see a decline in the percentage of fish exceeding 6 inches. And again, that maximum length was the same throughout any of the years, which kind of indicated there was a growth ceiling that the fish were capable of. So what we're recommending is that the rearing techniques be incorporated annually there, and future experimentation be done to try to determine the maximum number. If we can raise the number of fish that we're actually stocking, but still keep that the size of them in the range that we are right now. So that will be something that hopefully we'll be talking about in future years here. And then obviously we're going to be continuing to monitor our fishery through our angler survey, which I'm going to go into next. And we got a question in the back. Our other state hatcheries raise trout, but none of the other ones raise steelhead. The steelhead are they try to keep them in the Great Lakes drainage for disease purposes, and the Salmon River hatchery is the only one that's in the Great Lakes drainage. Yeah. Water temperature is always a factor at the hatchery. Sorry, the question was, is water temperature a factor at the hatchery? And it's always a factor at the hatchery. That's always been a problem because Salmon River is run off of wells, and the wells do not have enough water to supply all the fish that they raise there. Remember, they're raising Chinook salmon, coho salmon, brown trout, and steelhead there. They raise a lot of fish at that hatchery. So water temperatures get too warm in the summertime out of the optimal growth range. And in the wintertime, they get too cold and the fish are out of the optimal range. So they try to mix in some reservoir water and then try to mix in well water to temper it. But there's only so much they can do because their water's limited. Yeah. So. Okay, any other questions related to this study? And I'll open the floor up at the end for, we'll shoot anything after that, but anything related to what I just talked about.
Perhaps I missed it, but the number of stock that you use, that for creek, that for in the study, or is that on the whole Erie drainage?
No, that's all, that's the whole Erie, that's the whole New York. That's just New York. Yeah, I'm not talking Pennsylvania and Ohio, that's just New York stocking, but all of our streams combined.
Will you monitor the return rate of the adults?
Not,
You have some ideas going out. See if you get it.
well, we do that through our Creel survey, and that's what I'm gonna be talking about next. Yeah, I mean, not specific adults, not like we did in that Chautauqua Creek study. Okay, I mean, but we do we monitor the fishery, and we do that regularly, and we have. And that's exactly what I'm gonna talk to next, so thank you for the lead in on that. Okay, so we're gonna talk about our latest Lake Erie tributary. So this is fishery performance, guys. This is how's our fishery doing out there according to our established targets there. And this occurred from fall 2021 through spring of 2022. And for those of you not familiar with it, the survey is designed to estimate overall catch, use, and harvest of our tributary salmon fishery. We cover the 8 major tributaries that we stock. So that would be Chautauqua Creek, Canada Way Creek, Silver and Walnut Creeks, Cattaraugus Creek, 18 Mile Creek, both branches, Cayuga Creek, Buffalo Creek. Okay, so we cover, those are all the major creeks. There's other creeks that has lots of fishing in it. We know that too, but these are the ones that we stock, and those are the ones that we stock and expect fish to return back to again. So the traditional survey in the past has covered from September 15th through May 15th. However, we had some personnel issues here, so we didn't start to the beginning of October this year, and then we had some people leave. So we got interviews through April, but not harvest. So I'm going to go into a bunch of that. And then we didn't get any May of last year. So we had a little truncated survey compared to what we normally did as far as the comparisons go. And I'll point that out when we get into that, into the data a little bit there too. So so we didn't get to quite cover everything that we needed to in this latest survey, but we got the bulk of the fishery of the months that occur. We cover about 75 different sites altogether. I hope a lot of you guys, or some of you guys, have gotten interviewed at some point over the last years. This was our 7th survey. We started the first one in 03, 04, and 2020, 2021, 22 was our seventh survey out there. Okay, so let's talk about screen. That's a bummer. Okay, so this is about angler effort. Okay, this is tributary angler effort on the whole here. Okay, and this covers all of our surveys so far here. So so let's go with our 2022 is a little over 100,000. However, remember we didn't measure any effort in the first half of September, and we missed all of April and all of May on our effort. April usually accounts for about 30,000 angler hours, 20 to 30,000 angler hours. So adding in April alone into here brings us pretty close up into where we were in 2017 and 18. And you'll see later, there's some really good fishing that happened last April in there in a minute. So I know that we would have had pretty high angler effort measured that in April, and the fishery actually extended into May last year as well too with that too. So I think we're on a pretty flat trajectory as far as our angler effort went with the survey. So this graph remains unchanged. Our highest angler effort every year occurs in October and November without fail. Usually April is month number 3 in the whole mix, but we didn't measure April in here, but you can stick April on and say, okay, we're going to be up in here, probably up in that range, up through there. But without fail, it doesn't matter what the fishing quality is. People like to fish in the fall. The least amount of effort happens in the winter months, and that's always the same as well too. Sometimes some of the best fishing happens in the winter months, but that people don't get that with that too. And we'll get into that in just a minute here as well too. But February is traditionally the least amount of effort, then things ramp up in the springtime.
Yeah, quick question.
Yep.
Do you think the April usage is due to people still thinking that trout season opens April first? Or is it, I mean, some years are good and some, the suckers are in?
Yeah.
and not-
So, we'll
I'm just
talk about that
surprised.
a little bit, a little bit at the end, a little bit too. So Joe asked, is April effort, he thinks related to the opening of trout season at all? And I think that might have a little to do with that, but I think your usual steelhead guys knows that that the fishery's open, most of the year, but spring, I think that April that people do relate April to trout fishing, and that does bring people back out, and it's warming up, and we get some really good runs. We had really good runs this past April, bringing fish in. So I think it's a crapshoot sometime of what you get, but people traditionally fish in April anyway. Yeah. So let's look at things by individual creek, okay? Angler effort by individual creek. Those of you that are out fishing will know that 18 Mile was by far the big winner last year. And why is that? Usually Cattaraugus Creek is the one that tops everybody. It was terrible. Last fall, usually the Cat is best fished in the fall, and it was blown out for pretty much all of October and November. Anyway, it started to fish a little bit in December and through the winter months, but that's when stuff starts to really drop. So the Cat is usually up around in this 40 to 60,000 hour mark. And instead, I think that a lot of the effort shifted over to 18 Mile. It had some good fishing, and then Chautauqua Creek. Those are the two big winners. And the Cat came in third. Usually the Cat's number one just about every single year, but 18 Mile has been one that's really been ramped up in use. And I think if anybody goes there was a lot of cars, a lot of people fishing, and there already is lots of cars and lots of people fishing this year over there as well too. So I don't see that changing a whole lot. Chuck.
Would you tell people what the line segment?
Oh, I'm sorry. The bar. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks.
I have a map.
Thank you.
I know.
No, that's good. So sorry, these are just error bars around there. Okay, so that's just kind of the range that we're in there. I probably should have taken them off, but I had them on the graph. They are right. That's just our error bars around there. So we're 95% confident that this average is actually somewhere between those two bars. Okay, that's all that any of those are on there, and hopefully I won't have any more of them on here, Chuck. I kind of just had them on the graph and kind of threw them in there. I'm not going to talk a lot about the tributary, about the harbors at all, but you see the numbers up on top. Not pretty low effort in the harbors this past year, just about none out of Barcelona, just some ice fishing down there. Okay, so let's get into catch rates. Okay, so this is your fish performance, right? Fish per hour catch rates here. So this is over our time trend here. Again, I guess I got some more error bars on here as well. Again, 95% error bars on these, but the red dotted line on here is our Lake Erie steelhead management plan, which is 0.33. Okay, so we're looking to stay above 0.33, which is a one fish every 3 hours. Okay, that's our line. We were back there in 14, 15. We're trying not to go back there again. Last survey was 0.56. We were at 0.44 in 2021, 2022. I'll go into that. So a bit lower than we would have liked compared to where we were before, but certainly not terrible anyway. And if you look anywhere across the country, 0.44 blows just about anybody else away when you're looking at a steelhead catch rate. Unfortunately, everybody here is used to stuff at a little higher level from where we were in the past, but we have a very good fishery. Okay, let's look at catch and harvest rates here, and we'll look at them by month. Again, just for this, we had nothing in September, nothing in May, so I'm going to leave those out here. But again, pretty consistent in the fall. October, November, December, catch rates pretty flat line in there. Not October, November, December, January, and even into February, pretty consistent. So a dip down in March, And then we saw a big ramp up in April. We had really excellent runs and the cat was fishing really good in April on there. And that accounted for a lot of the catch rates there. A lot of people were fishing Cattaraugus Creek and we're catching a lot of fish there. So pretty consistent across the board. February sometimes is the one that you got to watch out for. It's usually the highest. The last couple of surveys, it's been the highest. It has the least number of anglers fishing and you have the highest catch rates. I've never quite figured that out. But sometimes you get some really good runs in February and people miss the boat. So something to keep in your mind. If you don't mind fishing in the cold weather, February is one to keep in the back of your mind. Not many people fishing and really good runs in February when you get a little bit of a warm up. So I will say the one month that has really perplexed me out of this whole thing here has been, was October. There was a lot of fish in the creeks in October. There was a school, let's say, for instance, in under the bridge in Silver and Walnut Creeks that was in the hundreds. And our creel agents were down there and nobody could catch them. They were just, people were like, there's fish everywhere and I can't catch them. A bunch of fish came in on the range, the water got clear and the fish were not biting. And those numbers came in and I was like, man, everybody's telling me there's so many fish in. How can that catch rate be that? I thought it would just be off the charts and it wasn't. I was expecting twice that. And it's not indicative of the fish that were in the creek. It was just the conditions weren't really great for catching those fish, I believe. Question.
Okay, thank you. Question. Okay, so a lot of big people are trying not to catch you. What was the most successful method, like spoon or live minnows or flies or what?
Well, that's a good question that I don't have an answer for. The gentleman asked what was most successful during those months there. And I will say that the guys fishing very early in the morning or very late in the lower light conditions was when we were seeing the most success. Usually the guys that were fishing right very early in the day were the guys that were catching the fish. And as soon as it got bright out in that clear water, it was pretty much done for the day. But I do not have that answer. And I could probably pull that out of the data of what might have been the most successful, what might have been the most successful, because we do ask that question.
Okay, so
with
what
that.
you're saying is early light before it got bright and maybe towards the end of the day when it started.
Yeah. Yeah, in those two. And I think that that's a lot to do with those fish actually seeing and being spooked. Yeah. And then more people being there as well too, as it got lighter out. Yeah. Or early bird catches the worm is actually true in this case. Yeah. So let's. Yes. Yeah, we had rain, but the smaller creeks, now the cat was like blown out. So there's fish in the cat, but these other creeks had rain, but they were running clear. We were getting rain, water was high, but they were running clear. Yeah, they were all running clear. So running clear is not usually conducive for catching lots of steelhead. Yeah. Let's look at harvest rate real quick. This is catch rate. The harvest rate is in light blue there. Super low. Okay, I mean, there's not much harvest going on out of here. We'll talk about that in a minute, a little bit more here, but you can see there's just not a whole lot of harvest going on in any of the months. And if you look on the next graph on any of the creeks either, I have the harvest in green on this one and the catch rates in blue for individual creeks here. Not a whole lot of harvest going on. So one thing that I like about this graph is, for the most part, we're pretty consistent across the board when you look at the creeks. All right, Chautauqua Creek was a big winner, 0.59 fish an hour. 18 Mile, okay, the most fish creek, was also the lowest catch rate at 0.34, I believe, or 3.5 fish an hour there. But all the rest of them were kind of right middle and about the same. And that's that's good. That means that the fishing was pretty consistent across the board, regardless of where you went. with that too. And I think that's a good fishery. Like, it's not like, I'm gonna show you some stuff here in the next slide there, where it didn't used to be that way, but it has been in more recent years here. So pretty consistent, with that across the board, in our latest survey. So this is the one I was talking about. So let's talk about this for a minute here. So this is a messy graph here, with that too, but just kind of look at it on the whole. Okay. So let's just point out a couple things. So this is catch rates over all 7 of our surveys. Okay. And, by individual creek. Okay. So, if you look back in the early years, we had some creeks that did awesome and some creeks that didn't do awesome. All right. Some were way high, some were low, like that too. But we started to tighten stuff down here. Fishery dipped down here, but look at the last 2 surveys. For the most part, no matter where you go, you're getting the catch rate seemed to be pretty consistent across the board. Pretty consistent across the board. And if you really look, I mean, you take out these early Chautauqua and Canada Way ones, and you take out here the Buffalo River down low, everybody's right around through the middle sections. Everyone's right about through that meet in the middle. You take out a couple of the strays, here and there too, generally, but all the creeks have kind of pulled in here in the last 2 surveys. And to me, I think that's an indication of a pretty consistent fishery, and that we're fishing in. No matter where you're going, you're going to find about the same quality across the board. And I kind of like that. You go to Canada Way, or you go up to 18 Mile, or you go to Cayuga, your fishing's going to be about the same, everywhere you go. So here's a little different way of looking at that. And this, I just wanted to throw this up there because it combines some surveys that were done over in PA and Ohio as well too, along with ours. So New York is the green, PA surveys were in blue, and Ohio is a couple years in red. Okay. And the bars aren't error bars on this. They are ranges of creeks that were sampled that have the lowest catch rate and the highest catch rate. Okay. So that is your catch rate ranges of from that particular survey. Okay. So what you will notice here is back in the early days, we had some creeks that sucked, and then we had some other ones that were awesome. All right. And that kind of carried through. And that wasn't just us, that was Ohio too. Look at Ohio, and that was over in PA over there. It was the same. Well, look at the last couple of years. That bar is kind of tightened down a little bit. We haven't got any creeks that are really overly spectacular, but we haven't got any that are bad either. So I think this graph kind of I like that it kind of shows that we've been kind of tightening stuff down a little bit, and I think that just gets that consistency in our fishery across the board. And I think that's really what we're shooting for, is a good consistent fishery.
Good question, Jim.
Yep.
Do you think the angler surveys are giving you a good amount of data compared to the old angler diary program you had?
Yeah, so the question is what kind of data are we getting out of our angler surveys compared to our old diary program? So let's talk about the diary program for a minute there first. So that maximum, when that maxed out, I had about 100 anglers in that, and then most years it was way less than that. And you were getting, and most of the people that participated in that were guys that like to fish, and they were pretty good fishermen. So we weren't getting a really good sample across the board of what was really going on out in the fishery. Compared to our Creel survey now, I think this past one, we were nearly 1,300 interviews over the course of the survey. I've had some surveys that I've run over 2,000. So we're getting a much better cross section of your average angler out there right now, and a much better idea of what's going on in all the creeks compared to specific creeks that those particular diary guys were fishing with that as well too. So and that was the reason that we dropped that diary program, that we've gotten much better information out of this angler survey, and it has went a long way. this has been a really, really good survey and one that it's gonna carry on long after I'm gone. With it as well too. And I think it's our best way to monitor this fishery and what's going on with it. So, yeah. Good. All right. So let's do a quick, just a quick summary here. So overall catch rate, 0.44 fish an hour, well above our management plan, target of 0.33. 18 Mile Creek, highest angler use, but the lowest catch rate. Cattaraugus Creek, pretty low angler use due to those poor fall stream conditions, that occurred there. Pretty consistent catch rates, across the sampled streams. And then, and it continued high release rate. So we had like a 93% release rate, this past year. Usually we're hovering in the about 88 to 90 range, a little bit higher there. So, you know, we stock these fish. It's okay to bring one home. Guy in the figure here, I was actually doing creel in April. And I was eating my lunch, watching him fish, and I watched him catch his first steelhead ever. I ran down and took a picture of him. And this dude was so happy. You guys wouldn't. He had it on the stringer, and he was on the phone with his girlfriend, and he was bringing it home. And I wouldn't be a fish I would bring home, man. It looked like it'd been in the creek for months, you know, but I'm not kidding you. That smile, this guy was absolutely ecstatic. And that was his first steelhead. And I was happy I was there just watching him. And I was like, man, you know, I made my day. That's what it's all about. And that guy, you know, it was okay to bring it home. I'm sure he enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yes, not under the Thruway Bridge or Harlem Road.
That was, geez, on Buffalo. That was under, no, it wasn't Harlem. It was not on either of them. It was off of, shoot, there's a,
That's down at South Rockland.
yeah, trying to think. It's one of the major roads, but it's upstream higher. It's, which one? Transit. That's it. Thank you. It's under transit. Yeah. Yeah, you got that right under. There's a whole big pot of fish that were in there, and that was in April. There's a bunch of fish there. And he's like, man, I have been able to catch one, and finally we one bit. So yeah. Yeah. It was pretty fun. Okay, so let's just a couple odds, ends, and notes here, wrapping it up here. You guys like, oh, I saw this photo last time. That's like my favorite photo, this kid up there. And he's caught way up in the Chautauqua Creek drainage there. And I mean, if I had ever pick a fish that was wild, it would be that fish. Fins on that thing, that fish is just beautiful. And that's a place that they get wild fish way up there too. That's a beauty. I know, right? I know the exact actual rock that picture was taken on, up there. All right, so our lake, last time I talked about some proposed Lake Erie regulations. We actually went through with them. We had no rebuttal of them. So what we did is these were regulations that went in because of stuff that was adopted over at the Salmon River. They got adopted into Lake Erie as well too, but we don't have the problems over here that the Lake Ontario tribs do. So we actually went to our ECOs and said, if we eliminate this, is this going to be a problem? And they said the only things that we see over here are people that are over bagging or people that are fishing without a license. Nobody does anything else over here. So our goal all along has been to have people fish. If you want to go out and use a spinner or a spoon, then use a spinner or a spoon. It doesn't mean you can snag fish, legally fish that over here, but you know, allow people to use and utilize the fishery here. That's what we're here for. We stock these fish so people can fish for them. I don't want somebody opening up and scratching their head with a book, which I have a story of that at one time. Maybe I'll tell it real quick. I was up on Cattaraugus Creek, up in Gowanda there, and I was actually filling in on the trib survey one day. And I was walking along, and a dad came up, and he has a kid with him up there, and we were right up in Gowanda. And, I go, you fishing today? He goes, well, we're trying to fish. He goes, I've been looking at the reg book and I can't figure out what to use. He goes, I don't know what's legal and what's not. I didn't want to use anything. So I said, all right. So I said, so I had my reg book I said, let's open up the reg book. He said, well, I got mine handy here. Okay, great. He handed it to me. He was opened up to the Salmon River regulations on the Lake Ontario trips. If you ever looked at our reg book, those are what, 3 pages long, 4 pages long, got all sorts of diagrams and all sorts of stuff you can't do. He goes, I can't figure out what to use. I said, well, first of all, you're in the wrong section. All right, so let's flip back a couple of pages here. I go, okay, we're in the Lake Erie trips here. And this is before even we simplified a lot of stuff, and I go, this is what we have. We don't have as many regulations there. So that, and I go, you can fish this and this. And the kid looked at me, he goes, can I fish a spinner? And I go, absolutely. And he whipped the spinner on and he went running off. And I go, that is what it's all about right there. That kid, they couldn't figure out what to use, but he just he knew how to fish a spinner. And they had a spinning rod and he chucked the spinner on and he went running off to fish while I was talking to his dad. And I was right there, made a big impression on me about our regulations and trying to just simplify. And we've done that. Jason's done great. That's what we've always worked towards, is just trying to simplify the regs and letting people fish. We're not going to do stuff that people, are doing illegally, or they're going to be a problem with that too. But these aren't a problem there. So lining here, the 4-foot maximum distance between lure and any added weight, we don't see that over here. Again, and then added weight to the hook, that might be like a Michigan cricket or something like that. Well, you're not, you know what you're doing with the Michigan cricket. If somebody sees that on there, you're not fishing. You're going to get a ticket for that. The ECOs are going to give you a ticket for that. But we just don't see any of that happening over here. So why have them on the regs and not allow somebody that wants to fish a 1/4 ounce jig in there, which a lot of people do still drift stuff like that there. So we're kind of opening up the regs, and we're down to very few on our steelhead streams. But with that said, we see very few citations ever get out. Very few the ECOs handed out. We just don't have a lot of the problems. Springville Dam. That's all I'm going to say is this project's still on hold. We're not going to go into that one any further. There has been no movement on it since I talked to you guys last year. I don't know if something's going to happen with the project. You can ask me any questions and I'm going to say I don't know, because I honestly do not know of where this project's going or where it's going to end up.
Other dams, there's a big push, to have fish passage and get rid of the obstacles. Let's say the Blossom Road Dam. Any plan for that one, or?
Yeah, so
Any of the other trips that have obstacles?
yeah, so the question is, are there any other plans for any obstacles and or for any other dams? I mean, aside from Blossom Dam now on Buffalo, and I think the Blossom Dam, I believe that's a natural barrier there. There's actually a blockage above that at Chair Factory Road, I think. Is that right, Chuck?
Yeah, it's in the Elmatown Park.
Elmatown
It's
Park,
on Bowling Road.
Bowling
About
Road.
6 feet long, and I've watched steelhead in lower water up just about to the top, swimming up the cracks. I mean, that Blossom Dam is the first impassable barrier, right, for legal ramifications. It does not stop fish from going over.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
go over, and they go over that Blossom Dam too.
yeah.
I know somebody who, I don't know if anybody would go out and do this unless you lived in the area, but I know somebody who catches steelhead in Buffalo Creek up at 28.
Oh, okay.
They live there, so they
Yeah.
go down and fish.
So I mean, 18 Mile is a good example of this, right? The main branch of 18 Mile, really the barrier is just out of the park at the old Matulke property. There, I think, I don't know if he's there anymore, but that's what I know it as there. And there used to be like an old mill dam right there. But I've also, yeah, exactly. Yeah, all right, off of Church. That's exactly right. But I've also talked to people that own property way up and they said they see steelhead way up in that drainage all the time. So some fish get by, get by that area up through there, but it's just that's just kind of where our regulations end there because there is no defined like there is on the South Branch. There's like Cromer's Mill is a defined barrier there, or Canada Way Creek up at Leona Falls. There's a natural barriers up through there that are pretty well defined. So
Just one quick question, do you know why it's on hold?
there were some issues here with property landowners below that and possibly with them getting sediment gravel coming over into the property. And that is it's not resolved on how to actually deal with that. So that's been the main thing, and funding. The project has gotten super expensive, and it's way out of the funds that we have available to pay the match on it. So there's a lot going on with it, put it that way. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the last slide here, and I just wanted to mention this because A, because my wife works for this organization, but B, I thought it was pretty cool too. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy actually was able to purchase the west side of the mouth of Chautauqua Creek from Route 5 down to the mouth, and that was a property that was for sale that the landowners were willing to sell to them, but there was also going to be a spot that somebody was looking to buy and build condominiums on as well too, and they were able to purchase that land in over this past in 2022. So that is going to actually preserve that will actually be land that will be set aside. That's what they do. They do land acquisition there, and that land will be left wild there and will be open for fishing. So that kind of really helps out. We have PFR on the east side of the creek, and now we will have access on the west side of the creek too, and preserves that whole fishery on Chautauqua Creek from the mouth up to Route 5. So I think that was something that was worth mentioning here. And if you want more information on that, you can visit the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy website that's on there, and they actually have a really awesome video taken with drones and stuff of that whole area. It's well worth getting on and looking at that. Okay, so let's just end with a quick fishing forecast for this coming year here. And I thought I did one of these last time, and I thought it's kind of fun with that too. And last year actually I did pretty good with that too. I nailed the early runs there because we had a lot of rain. And man, I was going with it being dry here, but the last couple days now got me thinking that we're going to be pretty good rolling into October here. I think that we're going to have some really good numbers of fish here coming in as soon as the creeks clear up, and I think they're going to be spread up here. But typically our fall rain and temperatures dictate what we get in the fall, right? Cattaraugus Creek has fish already, but as I mentioned earlier, there's some in I saw some that were in Silver Creek. I know guys talk to guys that are catching fish in Chautauqua and 18 Mile. I'm sure there's some in Canada Way right now as well too. Definitely there. So I'm expecting really good and lots of people out in October and November this year, but the fishery has been waning into December, and if it stays not cold, we don't get a bunch of snow, then December sometimes can be an excellent month to keep fishing, and we still get runs. Again, most anglers traditionally October and November expect the most action on the streams. Then I am, given our stocking there, we got some domestics going into the creek right now that I think that are helping improve that early fishery. Our next couple surveys, we'll be able to figure that out there. But so look for but maybe look for some more jacks in the early going here, than we've had in past years, that are made, from hopefully our larger fish and then from those domestics as well too. And then I like this one. Don't get lazy in the winter. Okay. When it warms up, be ready. And I'll say, especially February, keep February under your hat. If it gets in the 40s, man, you better get out there before the creeks go up with snowpack. That is the best time to fish in that early going. We get some warm days, and those fish sense a couple degree temperature, and they will come in and be ready to roll. They're looking to spawn, and they will. We've had some really good runs, especially in the month of February. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then, the spring we got a lot of frozen creeks. It tends to shift stuff back into April, more, if we have a warmer weather, then expect better fishing in March, and a lot more spawning going on in March than happening in April and into May. Okay, that's all that I have, and that was a lot for you guys there tonight. I know we ran on a little bit. So questions on anything that I covered, or questions on anything else that I would be happy to try to answer.
Any more gauge stations on the horizon on any of the creeks?
Gauge stations?
Yes.
Oh, so yeah. So the question is, any more gauge stations? I think that most of them have gauge stations on them now, Joe, I believe, don't they?
Mile has a couple, but
Yeah, there's gauge stations on Chautauqua Creek, Canada Way. I think there's even one on Silver and Walnut as well now too, an 18-mile too, to add on to the cat as well too, and Buffalo's had one all along there too. And you can, I know the other ones are online. I think that they all have them now. What I haven't figured out quite yet is where the best fishing is on some of those other off creek gauges yet.
right.
That's sort of the trick there, is to go like, oh, it's really good today and it's at a 2 or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, with that too, that's kind of the trick with those. I kind of know where the cat is, but that I think everybody does.
I checked out Canada Way trip a few times, well, at least about once or twice during the summer. Used to live right near there. So the water looked so low, I couldn't read anything actual to actually get up. That was Ridley Street Bridge. But even down close to the lake, the water was so low, I didn't see how we really have a fish there.
Well, but that's going to change with this rain coming in. Yeah, I mean, we've had over 2 inches of rain in the last few days. Now, given that, I mean, keep in mind, the creeks are going to clear fast here with this rain. You may think like, wow, they're going to be good to go. If it stops raining, they're going to clear and they're going to drop a lot faster than you think that they're going to, because it has been so dry, and the trees and the grass are still soaking stuff up, and the goldenrod. A lot of this rain is going to get soaked in, a lot's run off, but I would not be surprised if stuff drops down pretty quick. It's going to be higher than it was. I don't think you're going to see things at that summer level of where we were, but I would expect that things are still going to be a little, if we get a dry spell, of course, if it keeps raining, we keep getting the pattern that we are in now, then I think that we'll be good to go with that as well too. But don't be surprised if it dries up, that the creeks drop back down again until the grass stops growing and the trees stop soaking it up.
Are you running any lamprey control program? There's a lot of them in Ontario this year. Fishing up there, you caught salmon with 3-4 lamprey on them. I'm just wondering if you're running anything here in Erie.
So the question was really an update on our sea lamprey status here. So our early going in, and that's true, that there is some early indications here that sea lamprey numbers in Lake Ontario are up compared to where they were. We are not getting those indications coming in from Lake Erie right now. I will say that we completed our cold water survey out on the lake in October, and that's where we catch lake trout, and we did really good. We caught over a couple hundred lake trout, wounding, and that's where we get our sea lamprey wounding index on. It was very low. I worked up all the fish from that survey, and I hardly saw any fresh sea lamprey wounds at all from this past year. So again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think that our lamprey numbers continue and have and I will say in the most recent years, we have actually been below our targets for the first time since our initial treatments back in the 1980s on our sea lamprey wounding and our sea lamprey abundance numbers that they shoot for the last 2 to 3 years have been actually below targets. And I believe that that is going to continue in 2022. So whether it's due to treatments or other things going on, a high walleye population might be eating some of those. There might be any number of factors, but the sea lamprey seem to be under control right now in Lake Erie, which is a really good sign. Yep.
Yeah, I saw in the spring several times on Spooner and Darby
Mhm.
that are trips to the cat, the lamprey cruise.
Yep.
Out there. The truck
And that's a good point. Sorry. And they did treat Cattaraugus Creek this spring as well too. It got its regularly scheduled treatment there. Cattaraugus Creek did. So I mean, they're continuing with treatments, and I think we're right on schedule in Lake Erie. Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm curious, we were talking about hatch rates, harvest rates.
Mhm.
Harvest rates are low. Is that because we've all been drilled with catch and release, or is it fear of consumption?
I have not drilled you on catch and release. You guys have drilled yourself on catch and release. Yeah. We do allow a harvest of 3 fish, No, it's not 1, it's 3. But I will tell you that we have looked at that before in our angler survey and asked anglers, okay, and this is kind of interesting here. We did this a couple times. Initially on the first year that we did the survey, and then I did it I think the 11 and 012 survey, and had just about identical results. So we asked anglers, okay, if you caught 3 fish, how many would you normally keep? Okay. And then what would you like the regulation to be? Most anglers answered 0 or 1 if they caught 3 fish, meaning that they would either keep none or at most would keep 1. How many did they want to keep? The regulation? 3. Everybody still mentioned that they wanted the option to still keep 3 fish. That was the highest. So people don't keep fish, but everybody wanted the option to keep 3 fish in case they did one day. So it was overwhelming results in those. So it's kind of interesting with that most people are releasing fish these days, or if they do, they might keep 1, but they didn't want us to take the option away of those 3. And we don't gain, and we're not gaining anything by going from by going from 3 to 2 or 3 to even 1, because there's so few people keeping 3. I think I figured it out of our last survey or the survey before. If we dropped from 3 to 1, it would have saved literally a couple hundred fish. I mean, the fish, we stock the fish there. It's okay to have some harvest. If you want to bring one home, and smoke it. It's okay. Steelhead grow fast. They feed up high in the water column on fish and stuff like that. They're not our fish, mostly as far as eating goes, that you have the big limitations are your bottom feeding fish in Lake Erie, like a catfish or something like that. And a lot of those are ones that are up in like Buffalo Harbor and stuff, where there's been a lot of stuff put into the bottom over the number of years. So our in general, Lake Erie fish are very clean and eat. We eat them all the time. I eat them every chance I get. So and steelhead will be no different as far as that goes. It's I'm not saying you should eat a steelhead every day, but your occasional meal or smoking them or anything like that, you should be absolutely fine. I would not worry about that at all. Our Lake Erie fish in general are clean to eat, and that includes your walleye, which most of the people like to eat.
I know this is for steelhead, but this is more of a general question. Are there any intentions of increasing no-kill zones on our streams or trout generally?
Are you talking about our Lake Erie streams or our streams in?
Yeah, all the way to the streams.
We do not have any intention of those at the present moment. Those regs were put in as sort of like protection areas, especially the Chautauqua Creek one there, as we were trying to promote some natural reproduction. The 18-Mile Creek one was actually an area that we delve into, and then the park actually was very interested in us doing that. So that's kind of, excuse me, how those two areas came about as far as the no-kill ones go. But if we talk about that in our steelhead plan, and the only I think the only intention that we would ever do that again would be to promote some sort of natural reproduction of fish. But given where we are right now, there is no other creeks that really would benefit from that sort of a regulation in place, especially as far as natural reproduction went with that. So, yeah. Chuck, did you have a question? I thought your hand was up, but I might have.
I did mention it, I didn't, wasn't there also angler requests for that, no-kill section on 18 Mile Creek?
There was a lot of stuff
That-
going,
that
yes.
section was also-
Yeah, there was actually but the park was a big player in that. Yeah, and then part of it got taken away, but we won't go there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a angler request also.
Yes. Yes. I will stick around up here. If anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer. And if you have anything on steelhead, shoot the breeze on anything, I always love talking to people. Send me an email, give me a call on the phone. If I'm in the office, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. And or if you want to know what conditions are, how the fishing is, and I'll pass along anything that I know. But I thank you all for coming out tonight. Really great crowd. And it was nice being actually in person again.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Very good to see you. Did everyone get a chance to sign that volunteer sheet? If they're interested in going, helping us out. Okay, Chuck has it. Anything else from any of the other board members? You got any announcements or anything, Jim, or?
Yeah. one real
Okay.
quick one. Hi, my name is Jim Jowsey. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the newsletters that have been coming out within the last year or so. Okay. Yeah. One quick thing, when we're going through the roster, we're noticing a lot of people when they have signed up, join TU, they said, yeah, sure, send me the emails. And then they didn't give us an email address. So, if it's something that you want to get, that you haven't gotten, please send me an email to, there's a newsletter at WNYTroutUnlimited.org, and we'll get you on there. And I hope you guys keep on enjoying them. So, and give me definitely events going on, stream cleanups, anything going on in the area that you want our membership to know about, please let us know, because we definitely want to get that info out.
I could add on to that, those of us who've been around a long time know National TU tends to send you a lot of stuff through email. There is a way to opt out of those that would still get included on the stuff we send out. I don't know if we send much of anything out, but the newsletter.
A couple times a month. We'll send the newsletter out, and then we'll at the beginning of the month, we'll send out a call for content, whether that's events or news or what have you. But yes, we do not share, folks' email addresses with anybody. Because there's a lot of folks that, that have signed up for the email list who have opted out of communication from national, and that's okay too. And we have people that aren't members who also get the emails. So all of that is completely fine.
How do we opt out of the communication?
Unsubscribe.
I'll tell you,
I got it.
yeah, let me do some research on that, and then maybe that'll be in the next newsletter.
Oh, we've also got a Facebook page. So a lot of those announcements and stuff end up on the Facebook page too. Right? Yeah. We still run.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, and hope to see you next month. Yeah.